The day before my wedding, my younger sister Brittany unexpectedly arrived at my home. "Big sis," she declared, "I'm pregnant with Kyle's child, so I'll be the bride at tomorrow's wedding. That way the beautiful dress and ring will all be mine." Our parents, who always favored Brittany, chimed in. "Heather, just take what you need and leave. Kyle needs to take responsibility and marry Brittany instead." They showed no concern for me. But as I listened carefully to Brittany's story, something felt off. I'm Heather Morgan, a 36-year-old stay-at-home mom with two energetic boys, one in preschool and one in third grade. Their boundless energy leaves me exhausted, but these chaotic days are now my source of happiness. My current family, surrounded by my two adorable sons, is a lively one. However, the family I grew up in was a little different. I have a younger sister, Brittany, who is 5 years my junior. Since childhood, our parents consistently showered Brittany with affection, while often overlooking me. There's a reason for this. When Brittany was born, she was a premature baby with low birth weight and had to stay in the hospital for about a month. Because of this, from the moment she was born, our parents became overly concerned. Even as Brittany grew up healthy and started walking, if she stumbled or cried a little, they would overreact as if she had a serious illness. They bought her as many toys as she wanted. That wouldn't have been so bad on its own, but if Brittany liked one of my toys, they would take it from me and give it to her. This went on for so long that Brittany became quite spoiled. To be clear, although Brittany was born underweight, she grew up perfectly healthy and had no particular health issues afterward. Yet our parents continued to indulge Brittany. Whenever she said, "I want that," they would immediately buy it for her. Still, she's my only sister, and despite everything, I couldn't help but love her. There were times when I felt a little resentful. While Brittany could get anything she wanted right away, I didn't have that privilege. I had asked for things a few times myself, but my parents almost never bought them for me. So, when I started high school, I got a part-time job to earn money. For the things I desired, it's the very first thing I bought with my hard-earned money was a concert ticket for my favorite artist. It was a rare ticket in extremely high demand, but I was lucky enough to secure one. However, Brittany wasn't going to let that slide. "It's not fair, Heather. I want to go too." On the day of the concert, Brittany threw a fit, and my parents told me, "You're her older sister, so you should give Brittany the ticket this time." But I had worked so hard to buy that ticket, and I'd already made plans to go with my friend. When I refused, Brittany immediately started crying, and my dad reprimanded me severely. "How can you, as her older sister, not give it up for her? You're not leaving the house today." With that, they took the ticket away from me, and in the end, I couldn't go to the concert. From that moment on, I decided not to tell anyone what I spent my part-time earnings on. Even so, sometimes it was hard to keep it a secret. For instance, when I bought a new bag, Brittany quickly noticed and said, "Heather, did you buy that bag with your part-time money?" "Lucky you, Brittany. It's too soon for you. When you're in high school, you can get a part-time job and buy one yourself." "What? You're so mean, big sis. I want to show off a new bag to my friends too. It's not like I bought it just to show off." "Dad, Heather's being mean to me." She would immediately run to our parents. "Heather, are you being mean to Brittany?" "No, I'm not. She just wants my bag." "Well, then let her borrow it when she needs it." As always, our parents were incredibly lenient with Brittany. "Wait, I just bought this. I haven't even used it much myself. Then lend it to me this weekend." "I'm going out with my friends," Brittany said with a sly grin. And once I lent it to her, it was never returned. Brittany had a habit of taking anything. She liked from me one thing after another. That's why when I started college, I moved out of my parents' house and began living on my own. During my college years, being away from home made my life much more peaceful. It was during this time that I met my now husband, Kyle. Although we were in different majors, we became close after joining the same floral arrangement club. At the time, we were just friends, but after graduation, we reconnected at an alumni gathering for the club. At that first party, we started chatting, saying, "It's been a while," and perhaps thanks to the influence of a little alcohol, our conversation quickly picked up. Before we knew it, we ended up drinking together through the second and third rounds. At some point, Kyle admitted, "You know, back in college, I always had feelings for you." What? Oh, sorry. I kinda just blurted that out because of the alcohol. By the way, do you have a boyfriend right now? Kyle asked, his ears turning red, and I could feel my own face heating up in response. It wasn't just because of the alcohol. I decided to be honest and confessed. No, I don't. And actually back then, I kinda had feelings for you too, Kyle. Just like that, the two of us started dating. After 3 years of dating, by the time we were 26, we began seriously thinking about marriage. That meant we needed to visit each other's families to introduce ourselves. I called my parents and told them, I'm bringing someone home because we're thinking about getting married. A month later, Kyle and I went to visit my family together. The only thing that worried me was Brittany. She always wanted whatever I had. I was anxious but told myself, surely she won't go as far as wanting my fiancé. Besides, Brittany's an adult now. That's what I thought at the time. When we arrived at my parents' house, they greeted us warmly. Thankfully, Brittany was out with her friends, which allowed me to relax a bit. After finishing the nerve-wracking introductions, I finally felt relieved. But then I heard Brittany's voice from the front door. I'm home. Is Heather still here? Brittany came into the living room, her footsteps quick and energetic. Oh, there you are. Is this your fiancé? Nice to meet you. I'm Brittany, her younger sister. Nice to meet you. I'm Kyle Morgan. Well, sis, you've got great taste. Kyle, you're so handsome. What do you do for work? I work as an editor at a publishing company. Really? That's even cooler. You seem so mature. Heather, I'm jealous. Oh, is that an engagement ring? Brittany pointed at the ring on my finger and asked, Yes, it is. He gave it to me when he proposed. On my left ring finger was a diamond ring that sparkled brightly. Brittany stared at it closely and then said, Wow, I wish I had that ring. There it was. Brittany's I wish I had that has always been terrifying. Whatever Brittany had ever said she wanted, she always ended up getting. But she's 21 now, and surely she wouldn't say she wanted someone else's fiancé. Are you really getting married, Heather? You're so lucky to have such a handsome fiancé. I want to get married too, she said while glancing over at Kyle. I started to feel a bad vibe, so I decided to change the subject. Brittany, what are you talking about? You'll meet someone who loves you for who you are one day. Yeah, but I want someone like Kyle, she said, looking up at him with a coy expression. Oh no, she might actually say she wants Kyle for herself. Oh, I almost forgot. We had plans to check out the wedding venue today, right, Kyle? It's about time we leave. Panicking, I hurried Kyle out, practically fleeing from my parents' house. But after that day, Brittany started contacting me frequently. Can you give me Kyle's number? She kept asking questions about him. It got to the point where she even showed up at my apartment. Hey, Heather, is Kyle coming over today? Brittany, what are you doing here? Well, I thought if I came here I might see Kyle, she said with a giggle, but it sent chills down my spine. I was convinced she was genuinely trying to steal Kyle from me. When I decided it was time to set things straight, Brittany, I think you know this, but Kyle is my fiancé. I know that, but if he gets to know me better, he might call off the wedding with you and marry me instead, right? She said something terrifying with a completely straight face. Are you seriously trying to take my fiancé? He's not like the concert tickets or bags you used to steal from me. Because I fell in love with Kyle at first sight, I can't help how I feel. If you're not going to give him up, fine, I'll figure it out on my own. Brittany shot me a sharp glare and stormed out of my apartment. After that, she stopped contacting me but resorted to an outrageous move. Apparently she found out Kyle's workplace through social media and showed up there unannounced. Kyle, having no idea about any of this, was shocked but treated Brittany politely. However, he told me honestly that he was stunned when Brittany suddenly linked arms with him and acted overly familiar. That's when I sat down and explained to Kyle about my past with Brittany, her personality, and what had been happening. From then on, Kyle started taking precautions, like shifting his work hours, pretending he had other engagements, or going out with coworkers under the guise of business meetings to avoid Brittany. Thanks to those efforts, Brittany eventually stopped showing up at his workplace. So I thought Brittany had finally given up. Tomorrow is our wedding day. A lot has happened to get to this point. We researched venues, chose the dress and bouquet, and spent hours with Kyle deciding on tableware. We also picked out our new home and moved in a month ago. It's an apartment conveniently located for both of our workplaces, and we worked hard together to choose a cozy interior, even amidst the chaos, including Brittany's harassment, which left me mentally exhausted at times. We finally made it to the eve of our wedding. Brittany had been quiet for a while, and since she hadn't caused any trouble up to this point, I thought it was safe to assume everything was fine now, but that hope was soon shattered. The doorbell rang. When I opened the door, Brittany was standing there with our parents right behind her.
"What? Why are all of you here together?" When I asked, my dad replied with a grim expression, "Is Kyle here?"
"Oh yeah, Kyle, could you come here for a second?" I called out. Kyle came from the living room. "Oh, hello everyone. What's going on today?" Kyle asked with a cheerful smile, but my dad suddenly shouted at him, "You! Did you flirt with my precious girl? Well, we're getting married tomorrow." "What do you mean by that?" Kyle, completely confused, glanced at me for help. Equally puzzled, I turned to my dad. "No, not Heather. I'm asking if you messed with Brittany. Brittany says she's pregnant with your child. Heather's situation is one thing, but how could you get a student like Brittany pregnant?" Furious tears welled up in my dad's eyes. While the phrase "Heather's situation is one thing" bothered me, I looked at Kyle and silently asked, "What's going on?" He shook his head, clearly denying any involvement. Brittany looked at Kyle and spoke. "Kyle, it's true. I'm pregnant. Carrying your child, so you need to call off the wedding with Heather. Let's have our wedding tomorrow instead." "Brittany, what kind of nonsense are you talking about?" "Well, it'll be harder to have a wedding once my belly gets bigger, but it works out perfectly. My body size isn't that different from Heather's, and all the relatives are already coming to the ceremony tomorrow, so why not let me be the bride at tomorrow's wedding? That way, nothing goes to waste. The dress and the ring will all be mine. Isn't that a great idea, right?" Brittany smiled brightly at me as she proposed this outrageous idea. At this point, that's the only option. Kyle needs to take responsibility. And then my parents added their voices. "Dad, are you seriously believing this ridiculous story from Brittany? Do you really think Brittany would lie about something like this? She's the one to be pitied here, getting pregnant before marriage. But at least if they get married, it'll still salvage the situation. So Kyle needs to marry Brittany, so the new house belongs to them. Will Heather leave with your belongings?" My dad said that. Not just Brittany, now even my parents were saying this. The wedding is tomorrow. Are they seriously telling me to hand over everything I've worked so hard to prepare to Brittany again? Is it not just the wedding, but also my fiancés? When I was a kid, I gave up on things because I had no choice, but this I can't let go of. First, I needed to uncover the truth. I decided to ask Brittany, who was smiling triumphantly. "Hey Brittany, are you really pregnant? Your stomach doesn't look any different. How far along are you?" To expose her lie, I needed to press her for details so she couldn't talk her way out of it. With that in mind, I began questioning Brittany thoroughly. She responded with full confidence. "I'm still in the early stages. When I went for a checkup recently, the doctor said I'm 2 months along, so maybe it doesn't show yet, but I'm carrying Kyle's child." "Wait, 2 months? Are you sure?" I couldn't help but almost laugh as I repeated the question. 2 months? Really? I glanced at Kyle, and he also looked like he was trying not to burst out laughing. But Brittany kept going confidently, "All by herself, don't you know, Heather? 2 months your belly doesn't show at all. I didn't even realize it myself until I went to the doctor." "Oh, the doctor." Hearing that, I turned to my parents and said, "I hate to break it to you, but Dad, Mom, Brittany is lying to you." But my dad scoffed at me. "Is that the best excuse you can come up with just because Brittany's taking everything from you?" So I decided to explain it to him carefully. "Dad, listen to me. Brittany says she's 2 months pregnant, but that's impossible. That means her claim that she's carrying Kyle's child is a lie. Heather, stop denying my pregnancy just because I've taken someone you love. That's so cruel to my baby. Dad, Mom, I really am pregnant." Brittany, with tears in her eyes, pleaded to our parents. Hearing this, Kyle asked with a slight laugh, "So, Brittany, could you tell me exactly when we supposedly had this relationship?" "It was 2 months ago. Shh. You talked to me outside your office, and then we went to a hotel, remember?" Even though our parents were right there, Brittany recklessly said, "We went to a hotel." My dad's face turned bright red as he exclaimed, "You dare to play with my precious daughter?" Kyle calmly responded, "Well, 2 months ago, I was working from home full-time. I wasn't going to the office at all." Brittany and my parents were stunned, but my dad quickly regained his composure and said, "Kyle, stop lying. We can investigate. This, just admit the truth before you embarrass yourself further." Kyle, unbothered, replied, "I'm telling the truth. You're welcome to confirm it with my company." At that time, I was barely able to leave the house because I wasn't in any condition to move around properly, unable to move. My parents looked puzzled. Seeing their expressions, Kyle turned to Brittany and asked, "If we really spent time together, then you should know what happened. Right, Brittany?" "Well, was it a cold?" Couldn't help but burst out laughing. This made my parents impatient, and they asked, "What on earth is going on here?" The truth is, Kyle was injured 2 months ago. That's why he couldn't move properly. Yes, Kyle had been injured exactly 2 months ago. Because of that, he worked remotely from home using his computer instead of going to the office. Even after hearing this, Brittany still didn't seem ready to give up. "Oh, that's right. I mixed it up. It wasn't outside his office. It was at Kyle's apartment that I visited him." Wait a second, Brittany. How do you even know where Kyle's previous apartment was? Of course, Kyle told me the address before. That's why it wasn't at a hotel, but at his apartment where we were before. Before Brittany could finish saying something else that would make our dad explode with anger, I quickly cut her off. "Possible. That couldn't have happened. Why not?" When Brittany asked me, I responded honestly. "Didn't I already tell you he couldn't move? Because of his injury?" Brittany, trying to turn this to her advantage, said, "That's why I took care of him, and while I was nursing him, ... double quotes. That's right." This time, Kyle couldn't hold back his laughter. And seeing that my dad, his face flushed and veins bulging, shouted, "Kyle, this is your issue. What are you laughing at?" Kyle, bowing his head slightly, replied, "Sorry, it's just such an absurd story." Then Kyle looked at me and asked, "Can I tell them now?" I nodded, and he began to confess. "It's about the injury I had 2 months ago. It's really embarrassing to tell you this, especially to your parents, but the injury was in a very sensitive area for a man." As Kyle spoke, he glanced at the injured area. My dad, catching on quickly, stammered as he asked, "What?" "But Brittany said she's pregnant. What's going on here?" Kyle, looking a bit embarrassed, explained, "When I visited to introduce myself, I mentioned that Heather and I first met in a university floral arrangement club, right? So for the wedding, we thought it would be meaningful to recreate that connection by incorporating fresh flowers. We started practicing floral arrangements a few months ago, but while we were busy preparing to move into our new place, I accidentally dropped a spiked flower frog while juggling a lot of stuff. With all the clutter around, I ended up tripping, and, unfortunately, landed directly on the flower frog, injuring himself in a very sensitive area." My dad went, "Ugh. If needed, I can have the doctor at the clinic confirm it." It was actually pretty serious at the time. I was bleeding heavily, and well, I'm embarrassed to say, we even had to call an ambulance. I said with a laugh. "Yeah, exactly, so her pregnancy is impossible." My mom seemed to understand as well. She looked down, trying to suppress her laughter, her shoulders trembling. However, the only one who didn't get it was Brittany. What does that even mean? She kept asking our parents, but they couldn't bring themselves to answer. "Brittany, how could you possibly think pregnancy was even remotely plausible?" Kyle's explanation seemed to convince my parents that Brittany's claim of being pregnant with Kyle's child was a lie. "Brittany, what's going on?" Based on what Kyle just said, it looks like your claim of being pregnant with his child is a lie, Dad asked, trying to confirm. "Dad, are you calling me a liar? Why are you suddenly believing Heather over me today?" "Oh, Brittany, there are pains that only men can truly understand." Thinking this to myself, I turned to Brittany and asked, "By the way, is it actually true that Brittany is pregnant? Did either of you take her to the doctor?" Both my parents shook their heads. In other words, the pregnancy was something Brittany claimed entirely on her own, with no proof whatsoever. "Brittany, I'm going to ask you something important. Depending on your answer, I may never forgive you, and I don't know how Mom and Dad will feel about you either." I decided to pressure her and get to the truth. "Is the pregnancy real? If it is, whose child is it?" Brittany's eyes began to fill with tears as she finally admitted, I'm sorry. I lied about being pregnant. I thought if I said that, I could make Kyle mine. And if no one had caught on, how were you planning to handle this pregnancy story? I thought I could just say later it was a mistake. I was just so jealous of you, Heather. You have a beautiful ring and a handsome fiancé. I wanted that too. Brittany, how could you do something like this? For the first time ever, Dad shouted at Brittany. She broke down into loud sobs. Even my parents, who had spoiled Brittany all her life, seemed to realize this was too much. They apologized to us and, holding on to Brittany's arms as she wailed, took her back home. The next day, as planned, we had our wedding. Brittany didn't attend. As for my parents, they showed up, though they looked utterly exhausted. Apparently, after returning home the day before, Brittany had thrown a massive tantrum. Whether it was because she was shocked by being scolded by Dad for the first time, upset that things didn't go her way, or maybe both, it wasn't clear either. She rampaged through the house like never before, nearly causing a police incident. After spending the night storming around, she had fallen into a deep sleep in her room by morning. So while my parents looked visibly drained, they couldn't skip the wedding, especially with relatives attending. Despite all the drama the day before, I happily married the man I love. As for Brittany, she shut herself in her room and refused to come out after that. Come on, Brittany, it's time to get out of there. No way, you're just going to lecture me again. If that's the case, I'll stay in here forever. It seems she was deeply affected by being reprimanded by her parents. Naturally, she dropped out of college, and since she's become a recluse, she hasn't even looked for a job. Instead, she threw tantrums like a child, crying, "It's always about my sis Heather." My parents, at their wits' end, started questioning whether they had made mistakes in how they raised her. Eventually, my parents broke down and came to me for help. Heather, can you try to convince Brittany to come out of the house? Maybe bring Kyle with you? So we decided to visit Brittany. How are you? Kyle and I came to see you today. I called through her door, but there was no response. Thinking it was hopeless. I was about to let my parents know and head home when it happened. A loud scream of no echoed from down the hallway. Running towards the source, I found Kyle pale and shaken. Kyle, what's wrong? Why are you screaming like that? I just came out of the bathroom and there was something like Samara from the Ring film right in front of me. Standing in front of Kyle was indeed a woman in a long white nightgown with disheveled hair covering her face. Upon closer inspection, it was Brittany. I couldn't help but burst out laughing. It was true. Brittany's pale skin from staying indoors and her face hidden behind messy bangs made her look like a ghost. Well, it's no wonder she was mistaken for Samara. Calling me Samara is so mean. Brittany, being called a ghost, burst into tears again. Looking closely at Brittany, it seemed she hadn't washed her face or showered in a long time. Her skin was in pretty rough shape, and if anything, there seemed to be a faint, unpleasant odor as well. My parents soon arrived. Brittany, you're finally out, but you smell a little. Go take a shower now. Hearing this, Brittany wailed even louder. Dad called me dirty. My life is over. Sorry, that's not what I meant. It's just because you haven't bathed. Once you take a bath, everything will be fine. Now go, honey. Please help me here. In the end, Mom had to take over. What happened next was surprising. Brittany left home. Apparently, she couldn't stand staying with her dad, who had scolded her and called her dirty. However, before leaving, she demanded money, claiming it was their fault she was leaving. My parents, feeling partially responsible for her upbringing, gave her some living expenses and let her go. But after spending all the money, Brittany began calling Mom for allowances, which Dad initially tolerated. Eventually, though, he reached his limit. Taking advantage of the allowance she was receiving, Brittany didn't bother to work. Instead, she went on a shopping spree with the money. On top of that, she reportedly accumulated hundreds of thousands in credit card debt. When the debt collectors came to my parents' house, everything was exposed. If you're out of the house, then work for a living. Dad cut off all financial support. Brittany even tried calling me, saying, "Big sis, help me." But I firmly replied, "You're an adult now. Take care of yourself," and hung up. After that, I haven't heard from her. I'm not sure what she's doing now, but I've heard rumors among local kids about sightings of a real-life Samara. Has she gone back to hiding away again, or has she even run out of places to hide? As for me, I found out I was pregnant in the same year I got married and gave birth to a sweet baby boy. 4 years later, I had another boy. Now I'm a mom to 2 lively sons. Back when he was injured, Kyle had been pessimistic about ever having children. But now he's been entrusted as the editor-in-chief of a magazine. On weekends, he's a great dad who often takes our kids to the park to play with them. Mom kick the ball to me. Today we're at the park playing with our boys. Having 2 boys is exhausting, but seeing their adorable faces gives me endless energy. Okay, I'm kicking it now. Make sure you catch it. Got it. Even as I savor the happiness of these moments, Kyle still worries excessively while watching. Our kids run around. Don't run so fast. You'll trip. Be careful. Watching the kids run around. Kyle was the only one who seemed overly worried for some reason.